Well, hello there, and welcome everyone to the Riches and the Niches show. I'm your host, Rob Jacoman, and guys, I'm super excited. We have an absolutely incredible show for you. We are honored and blessed to have Warren Cleveland. He's with Captive Coalition. He's the CEO, or as we joked around or when we first started, I say he's the big cheese, because we actually used a movie reference from Braveheart where Mel Gibson's saying, men don't follow titles, they follow courage. And it's like, it was kind of fun because like we started off with that, we broke the ice. So Warren, I want to welcome you to my show. I'm so honored and grateful that you are on here today. We're going to talk about a really important topic. I think this is going to really transform a lot of people's minds about the industry. And specifically, we're going to talk about captives, and we're going to demystify captives. And we're really going to show people who are in this industry the power of leveraging captives as a strategy to not only retain business, but to really use that as your area of expertise and your specialty, and really going after and dominating niches, which is really the essence of our entire show. So Warren, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, bud. I appreciate it, Rob. Without a doubt. And I love what you're doing, right? Because I think niches are the right idea. I think agents, when you own a particular industry, and you understand it through and through, you gain technical knowledge that allows you to beat your competitors, but you can do positive things for the clients that you're trying to take on, right? Because you understand it, and I think that's an invaluable advisor, not a guy who's just flipping policies around.
Yeah, 100%. And you and I had a great conversation to start in the beginning part. Maybe we'll use some of that content because man, it was really powerful. So let's start off with this. Obviously, I joked around that everybody who's in insurance right now had this incredible passion and heart, and they knew they were going to be in insurance. And so all joking aside, it's a little bit about yourself. Tell us about the how you started with Captive Coalition and the problems that you guys helped to solve and the opportunity that you saw in the marketplace to take advantage of where you are today.
So I want to take a little liberty here. It's funny, we were talking about aviation. So imagine September 10th, 2001. Let's see, what would I be? September, I'd be 29 years old, right? I was born in 72, I'm 53 now. I am a co-pilot for Continental Airlines, 767, 757. The events of 9/11 happened, terrible. I mean, obviously awful. Changed the industry, obviously changed a lot of people's lives. I get a little letter, get furloughed, which means, hey, we'll call you when we need you, but it's going to be a while. No way to get another job. Aviation, is just dried up. Thousands of pilots are being let go. And so I was like, crying on my wife's shoulder, like, this is my whole identity, like, from a little kid, like, this is what I wanted to do. And now I couldn't do it. And so I didn't realize it, but I had an entrepreneurial spirit in there. And lo and behold, here I go trying to be a business owner, which I always said, I just thought business owners were crazy. And when I say stupid things like that, when I always say, like, why would you ever want to own your own business? Like, what are you, nuts? Like, everybody should want to fly 767s, right? That's really cool. And so when I say stupid things like that, it always comes back to get me, just like, hey, you were such a knucklehead when you say never. Like, you should never say never. And so anyway, I became an entrepreneur, and then I started a scratch agency, and literally, I built another business in the meantime, and just needed to move on. And so I was playing golf with a buddy of mine, and I'm bitching and complaining about something. He's like, "Oh man, you need to go be an insurance agent," because he was CEO of an insurance carrier at the time, a carrier now. And it was private equity, and they were divesting their position. And he said, and his CFO was with us, and he's like, "Oh yeah, man, we pay these guys all this money. They got no skin in the game." He goes, "That's a great business. You should do that." And I looked at it, I was like, "All right, let me go look at this." Well, within 3 months, got my whole team licensed, moved everybody over, and here we are. Put a flag in the ground. We're insurance agents. Yeah. So we, plodding along, I realized quickly I needed a mentor, and found a guy named Scott Addis, who really showed me. He has a process and an organization called the Big N, Beyond Insurance Global Network. Which, if you're purple cow versus brown cow, you should really look at that, because it's a great organization, great mastermind group. And so,
by the way, I wanted to say, I don't think that's something we talked about. Do you realize that Scott Addis is why I'm sitting here right now?
Get out.
You and I didn't talk about this. And it is actually a great segue. And then I want you to continue, but this is really important. My first entry into the industry was sitting in Cincinnati, Ohio, at Cincinnati's headquarters for a 3-day Scott Addis workshop.
No kidding.
That was my introduction into the industry. So I did something very similar to you, and I don't mean to have a side tangent here, but this is actually really cool. So Scott Addis is such a cool cat. He's like one of my favorite. Like, he literally transformed my thinking around how to sell insurance the right way and how to position yourself as a trusted advisor who really focuses on the risk management side and solves problems, and the purple cow thing. And I loved all that stuff. But I'm sitting there like green, not knowing a thing. Like, I understood commercial insurance because I was an engineer. Like, I was an environmental engineer and loved risk management. So it was a great transition, a natural transition for me. I needed to learn how to sell insurance now. So my first indoctrination into the industry is sitting there in Cincinnati, totally green, wet behind the ears, sitting in a 3-day workshop with Scott Addis, talking about, like all the things he believes and shares for how to build a successful book. And that was my intro into the industry too. So it's actually, I didn't know that about us. We're like in parallel. It's like we're running in parallel, form here. So it's wild. Scott Addis.
Well, it just shows you his reach and his willingness to give way beyond what anybody else would offer, right? I mean, this guy, even now, I still call him. I played golf with him a couple of weeks ago. I consider him, when anybody asks how I did anything in this business, I go right to him.
Yeah.
I owe him a ton. Because when I was a nothing, I had an agency. He thought the story was pretty cool about the whole aviation thing, but he taught me his process like he was teaching you, right? So getting into the mastermind group and then understanding how to write large commercial, which I really didn't know. I had an idea, but not to the level he was advocating. So, he was the one who introduced captives. And at one point he had like 132 captive clients. Some really powerful corporations. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. I want to dig into that. And so, through his help, he's seen the evolution of us go from independent agency, then writing large commercial clients, and then getting captives going, and then transitioning that. I was picking his brain like, okay, here's what I want to do. What do you think? And he's like, I love the idea. And he loved the education piece more than anything. And that's just who he is, right? He's just a guy, I don't quite know how old he is now, but he's still giving, right? If you called him today, I just can't say enough about it.
Isn't he the most soft-spoken, kind person? Like, I remember sitting next to him at dinner. Like, we had the event. I think it was like day one. I sat next to him at dinner, and just hearing him talk, I was just mesmerized, because I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy gets it. Like, his process is so unique and so different. Yep. And I love, like, I still remember the wheel, with the arrows, where, you understand and you analyze an account. Like, you go in there and you do your whole process, right? You really understand what are the problems, what are the challenges. And then he's got so many cool things that he teaches, the prospect advisory board, which I use to this day. All the different things that he teaches were brilliant at the time. And we're talking almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So I guarantee if I called Scott right now, he would probably remember, like, I don't know if you remember, but he'd be like, what can I do to help? You know, like he'd go, oh yeah, I remember, you know, the guy has an incredible memory too. So anyway,
he's sharp as a tack. He is, without a doubt. He's the reason, you know, like our chief underwriting officer, captain manager, he's, you know, he introduced me to one or two people, and then that led to, you know, new relationships, and it's all because of him. So again, I owe him such a debt of gratitude for everything that he's done for us.
It's awesome. We'll have to tag him. We'll have to tag him in the.
We will. Yeah, and big ends too.
We'll have to send him this little clip and just say thank you. You know.
Yeah. Thank you, without a doubt. Yeah. So I don't know where we were going to take that, but
well, you were on the aviation, like you were in the aviation industry, obviously as a pilot, and then you transitioned and you brought your team over, and now you're agents, right? Now you're like, okay, what do we do next? What's the next move?
Well, and so I was looking for that mentor, right? So that was Scott, and Scott said, man, you know, he goes, think about it, your risk management piece with your aviation background. He goes, think about that. He goes, what's the two things you never want to see in what you never want to have happen? I said, well, don't end up on the news and don't end up in the chief pilot's office, right? So how do you do that? You know, you had regular training. We're always training for what could happen, even though 99.9% none of that stuff ever happened. But if it did, you were ready and prepared. Like you know, you wouldn't just get in the airplane and kick the tires and light the fire and go to China from Newark, right? That's not a good idea, right? There's multiple people involved, you know, all kinds of planning, and, you know, you got just all kinds of stuff to have that airplane go from, you know, Newark to China over the pole with 300 people on board. That's, you know, that's what risk management's all about. Like,
that's a big deal.
You know, and so that's what really intrigued me about this whole, like, okay, that's a cool concept. I can get around that. And his process aligns with that whole idea. And that's what, you know, as you move into kind of the niches that you're talking about, right? That's exactly what we're doing, right? Everybody's running their business just like they're getting in a plane and going somewhere every day. It's when the bad stuff happens, what are we prepared to do to mitigate that problem, right? You know, it's going to happen potentially. So what are we going to do to mitigate that? And I think that's where agents can really get a lot more educated about the risk management, safety training that you can, you know, it's easier as a consultant, right? Because you're 30,000 feet up here, you're looking down at a guy's business. He's in it like this, right? A lot of business owners have kind of tunnel vision. They don't see necessarily the bad thing that's sitting over here that could get them pretty easily. And so I think that's one of the things that Scott's process. And look, agents can participate, and they can learn, you know, what that looks like. And I think, you know, that obviously taking a business into a captive, that business has to have that stuff already kind of happening, right? They can't come into the captive and say, okay, hey, we're gonna do this risk management, safety, and training stuff now. Like that's like that'll shine a flashlight on that problem very quickly. You know, you gotta be good already, not lucky.
Yeah. You know what? I think we should take some time, Warren, to really dive deeper into captives and demystify this whole concept, because I sometimes interchangeably, I know enough to be dangerous over the years. Obviously, the space that I played in is the middle market space most of my career, which led me to having to learn captives, or what I call alternative risk financing solutions. When you're talking to a prospect, they don't know what a captive is. I mean,
they don't know what the GL does.
I don't even think most agents understand captives at any level that they would be able to have a professional conversation with a prospect about why this could be a good solution or an option to help them better manage risk, to take more control of their insurance and risk management program. But I don't even think most agents can articulate the value proposition of a captive, the problems it helps to solve for an insured. So maybe, Warren, you could dive deeper into, as if I'm captive 101, what is the value proposition of a captive? What is a captive?
Well, a captive is an insurance company you form, right? That insures the business that owns it, right? But then most businesses aren't big enough to be in captives by themselves. So they, for us, we mash 50 of them together and we create a group. And then that group shares risk amongst each other. And then they benefit in the underwriting profits. So, right. So for every dollar you spend in insurance, 65 cents of that is underwriting profit or loss funds. 35 cents of that is operating costs, right? That's actuaries, legal, et cetera. That runs the business, the insurance company. And most insurance companies operate on kind of that. I mean, sure, the numbers change a little bit, but that's kind of the premise of it. So what we're doing as a captive, right? You're a business owner paying into this guaranteed cost thing every year. And you're like, man, we really run a great operation. Sure feel like we could get, I just don't feel like I get any value out of what I'm spending, right? Because it's an intangible. Until you use it, you're like, if you do that for 10 years, you have a few claims here and there. But ultimately, you're like, man, it's just something, my spidey sense is telling me I could do this differently.
Well, is it the difference between, this is actually a really interesting analogy, and I don't know if you agree or disagree with this. It's the difference between renting and buying.
Oh, completely.
If you look at a guaranteed cost program, a lot of, and I learned this from Scott, actually, he said, hey, listen, most insureds, they have the perception, they look at insurance as a sunk cost, because all essentially you're doing is you're transferring risk in exchange for premium without any guarantee that you're ever going to use or hopefully not use that. But to them, to a business owner, in their mind, it's a sunk cost. So they're not really getting it. Most business owners operate it with, all right, if I'm going to invest in something, I want an ROI. If I'm going to invest in marketing, I want to make sure I'm getting new clients from it. Insurance is a different ballgame. I mean, it's a whole different model. There's no guarantee that you're actually going to reap the benefit or the value of it, but you can still leverage insurance as a strategy to protect your business and obviously to lower that cost. But the difference is with a captive is a sense of control and ownership and having more controls internally to help you become a lower risk business, to help you optimize that spend. Would that be kind of like the simple way to for an agent to understand how captives work?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think captives are all about the money, right? They offer control, transparency, and stability for a business owner. And most business owners, like, who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want control over their insurance premium, have it tied directly to their losses and their results, see exactly where every dollar goes, right? And that's, I mean, every business owner I've ever met in my entire life wants that, right? They want to control their costs. They want to have predictable outcomes, and they want to understand, like, they want to be able to see. They don't necessarily need to own, they don't need to understand, aggregate attachment points, but they want to have transparency and see that, like a P&L statement. Okay, this makes sense. Like, I get this. So, when the agents kind of stick their head in the sand a little bit because they think, oh, this is too complicated, I don't have time. Like, I had a buddy of mine, actually, and it kind of shocks me. I still do. Maybe he just didn't like me. I don't know. But he's like, hey, he got a handful of accounts. He's complaining. We're having lunch. He's complaining about his one $500,000 account. I'm like, why aren't you talking to me about this account? And he's like, I just don't have time. Well, when the big broker comes and gives them this presentation about how they can, whack 30% of their total cost of risk, you're going to lose that account in about a minute. And I think he just sticks his head in the sand. Like, I just don't understand it, right? Why do agents? I think it's really why Captive Coalition came about, right? Because when I was losing my $300,000 revenue client, I called Scott and I said, hey, man, I'm struggling like this. I mean, imagine your largest client and the renewal is going to be awful. And it's, London deal and this and that. And I call him, I'm like, I'm at my wit's end. I got no other markets. I'm calling him like, what do I do? Like, who do I call? Like, can you call somebody in Cincinnati or, like, I didn't have that. And he's like, you need to think about a captive for this one. I'm like, okay. I called the usual suspects. He gave me a couple names. No, we don't do this. We don't do that. And so here I am. I felt like David and Goliath, but I didn't have my little, my little stone to throw. I was just sitting there fighting this beast. And so, it's like, here I am trying to find this captive that's going to work for this large property account. And sure enough, the day of the renewal, I secured this captive option, but hey, private equity, would you write me a $5 million check today so we can keep this account in our agency? And look, I did it half joking, like, I know you're not going to take this, but I wanted to give it to you anyway. And really what that triggered in me was like, okay, I hate losing more than I like winning. And I just said, okay, I gotta figure this out. Like this can't ever happen again. I can never let this happen again. Like this pissed me off so much. It's funny, I was cleaning my office out the other day and I pulled out a presentation. I sat in 2017, 4 years before this happened, about captives. 4 years. And I'm just like, I could have been so much further ahead had I just paid attention. And so anyway, just,
well,
I'm guilty of it myself, right? I didn't know it was a thing, or I didn't think it was like, it was just this thing out there, this nebulous, whatever, big company, that would do that, and how was I going to participate in that? Well, once you go, and the industry isn't doing any favors, right? The industry isn't out there training agents on how this stuff works at all, ever, zero. I mean, because I ran, that's the whole reason I did this, because I got tired of, like, we're getting our butts kicked out here. Like, let's go figure this out. And that's when I made this decision. I'm like, hey, let's go teach agents how this works. Because it looks scary, it looks intimidating, but it's really not. It's not that the industry wants, imagine you're a business owner and your agent's coming at you with all these technical jargon terms, right? And you're like, business owner, like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, I don't get this. And they're intimidated by it, but they know they have to have it. I think the industry does the same thing to the captive, on the captive side, right? They show it as this thing that's, man, it's only for the big guys and this and that. And that's just a bunch of crap, right?
Well, it's intentional. Because
totally intentional.
It's intentional because it's the same thing I've talked about in content all the time. There's always, in the insurance industry right now, until somebody does something about this, there's always going to be top-down control. And the big shots like to control the distribution. And of course, they're going to paint this as, oh my gosh, this is like some complicated thing, because that's the same perception I had. When someone introduced me to captives, I was like, well, isn't that for like really big accounts that have lots of capital to
Fortune 500 type
right.
accounts?
Or somebody who has a lot of cash laying on hand, doesn't know what to do with it, and is like, hey, can I use a captive as a tax strategy? And and then that's the perception of business owners, like, oh yeah, I heard about captives. You can, it's all about the tax play, right? And I'm like, nah, like, if you have
stop.
You have that thought process going into this, like, that's the wrong intention. Like, sure, there's benefits there, but the intention here is to really position yourself to have more control and to really put this back into your hands. Because if you have a really good, and I'm with you on this, I started in the industry on the risk management side. So for me, risk management was paramount to anyone's success, because if you can better manage risk and take control of that internally, it makes you actually a better candidate for a captive. It makes you also, you're gonna really make an impact on your cost, because what do we all know about insurance? Claims drives costs, right? And if right.
Yeah, and so the insurance industry will never give you a better deal unless you're willing to take on a little more risk, period, right? Zero, never. And so that's what I tell agents, like the three things I look for, when I was a retail agent, and so this is what I'm coaching them, three things you want to look for in a business owner, right? Number one, they got to be spending enough money, right? So for us, it's like 250 grand comp GL auto combined. Two, most business owners are entrepreneurial, but they have to be willing to take a little risk on themselves. They have to bet that they're running a good operation, right? Yeah, we're confident in ourselves to be able to have this repeatable kind of conclusion. And three, and this is probably the most important one, is the mindset of the business has to have risk management, safety, and training can affect their outcome, right? If they don't believe that risk management, safety, and training can affect their outcome, it's kind of it's a non-starter. Because they can't play well in the sandbox with the other members if they're in a group. Or two, if they're big enough to do it by themselves, being a single parent or segregated cell by themselves, look, you're going to run through your retention quickly. And you'll be shucking money out, funding this thing, going, why the hell did we do this, right? So I think those are the three keys. So you're dead spot on with risk management is the first most important piece of any of this, right? And your ability to have repeatable outcome.
And that's why I was so attracted to this model. I mean, and we had a guy who specialized in doing captives, and that actually leads me to my first question on this is, if we really cut through all the fluff, why are most agents still scared of captives? Like, what's the root cause here? Yeah. Is it education? Is it complexity or fear of losing control? What is it?
I think it's a little bit of both. Well, number one, I think it's agents won't ever sell anything they don't fully understand. And they are so, like, even now, like, as we get agents in our process into our captives, one thing I was adamant about as our team is that, look, the agent is the quarterback here. So we're going to do everything we can to support them because they don't know what's happening next. So, like, everything we feed them is like, this is going to happen next. This is going to happen next. So we're going to meet in advance, and then we're going to meet with you and your client. It takes a little more time on our part, but I think it does so much more to help that agent understand what's happening. When you sell a policy to an insured, you know exactly what's going to happen, right? You know the cadence, the rhythm about how this happens. And so I think that's the first part. It's agents don't understand it. And then two, they think because they don't understand it's this huge complex mess. And like, oh my gosh, like that would take me years to figure it out. I don't have time. I've got to go deal with this renewal, that renewal. And then ultimately they're worried about losing the control. And for a lot of them, that's not too far off the mark, right? Because it doesn't take that long to learn this stuff. And we whittled it down to bite-sized chunks. So we made it very digestible as part of our training program. But a lot of captive managers would just assume, hey, you give us the referral, get out of the way. And I think that's the wrong way to go, right? That's another reason why I started Captive Coalition, because the agent has the relationship. I don't have the relationship, right? So if something's going wrong, like, I'm calling the agent going, hey, we got to deal with this, and here's what we're going to do, or what do you think we should do? And like, let's partner. We're partners on this. But it's the agent's responsibility to go get that done. Like, I can't force the business owner, other than non-renew them and kick them out, which I don't want to do that, but that's where the agent comes in, and and just coaching them up on how to do that and adding more value to their client. I mean, that's what Captive Coalition's all about.
I love it. And I do believe there's that education piece in there. And if we can do a better job at educating agents on the value proposition and how to position themselves and just learn. I mean, I heard this on a podcast yesterday as I was doing my power walk, and I love listening to podcasts. And, one of the things that came up that really struck me is there's many ways to do something, right?
Oh, yeah.
If you wanted to market your business, there's several different ways you could do it, right? You could do webinars, you could do workshops, you could do SEO and websites, you could do all kinds of different things to grow your business. But every time you make a choice to choose one, it requires that you develop a unique skill set so that, number one, you can learn that skill, but number two, you can understand how to deploy it really well, right? You can't do everything.
No.
So pick one thing, do it really, really well. And obviously that's the whole essence of niching down, and even captives are a niche strategy, and using, so my point of that is, in order to understand something as an option, it's going to require you to go through the process of learning and developing a new skill set. And I think that's part of the problem in the industry is, oh, it's going to require me to learn something new. I have this going on. I have this going on. I just don't have time. When in fact, you're going to miss out on an opportunity. And guess what? Your accounts are vulnerable. And you have to understand that if you don't develop the skill set and learn and surround yourself with the right people, you're putting your business at risk. Because someone, like you said in the opening, if you don't teach this to your clients, someone else will.
Oh,
and that's the back door. That's where your churn's going. Your churn, and anybody who doesn't understand what churn is, it basically means you're losing your butt. You're losing your accounts. They're going out the back door and working with somebody who is actually giving them alternatives and solutions to solve the problem that they came to them with.
Well, I look, most agents have three kinds of clients, right? You got the small ones that if they left, you probably wouldn't even notice. You got middle ones that, they're big enough that you keep them around, even though they may be annoying at times. And then there's the big ones. And if they left, your business would look different the next day. And that's what I go back to that. Like, don't be me, right? Don't lose $300,000 revenue client. 4 years earlier, I was in a captive presentation, and had I taken advantage of the free stuff that was being offered to me, I could have probably saved that account and been way ahead of it, right? Just don't do it. Don't be the knucklehead like I did and just not think that it could happen to you, because it very well can, because it's this industry is growing at I think it's like Ernst & Young said it's like 25% of all the premium in the commercial insurance industry is in captive. And that number is only going to get bigger, right? Adverse selection is here, right? So, carriers are dealing with claims and bad performers, and they're using the good performers. It's the greatest form of socialism, right? Winners pay for the losers.
100%.
And the winners don't want to do that anymore.
Well, I actually want to go down that road here real quick, because isn't it ironic that one of the most powerful risk solutions is captives? But you and I also talked about, like, I had a trip to Chicago where I was actually working with a very specialized MGA that specializes and does one thing world class. Like, they design products around solving specific problems in the aviation industry. And I think where I'm going to go with this, Warren, is, and I'd love to hear your take on it. There's two big things I'm seeing in the industry right now. Number one is specialization, and how important it is to position yourself as a true expert and authority at what you do, because that's who businesses want to work with. And that requires you to build a world-class risk management and insurance program for that industry. And that's what we teach, right? That's what we teach. And again, this isn't about us, it's about you. But my point is, there's two things that are happening kind of side by side right now. And a lot of times it happens during a hard market situation. And, we've experienced that in the last few years. I think there's going to be a shift more towards specialization and training these armies of industry niche specialists who have total mastery over those industries and those classes of business, so much so that they develop these really specialized books of business. Well, now when you bring in the captive solution makes it even more exciting, because not only can you become a specialist, but now you can bring specialized captive solutions to your clients and to prospects, which makes you even more invaluable. So that's the shift that I'm seeing right now in the industry. That's where I feel like it's going. And I'd love to hear your take on, if you were an agent today starting off, and, obviously you're on board with the whole niche focus, but if you were on board today, starting from scratch, I would imagine you would probably advocate for someone to have this as one of the quells what's that terminology?
When arrows in the quiver.
Correct. Thank you. You probably want to have this as niche captive specialty, so that you bring that knowledge and bring that expertise to a captive solution. Man, I think it puts you in a whole different league, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, look, niching, I think it's way more important for the agent to niche the industry versus the product, meaning like like it's you can understand how a high deductible works or a retro, dividend plans, etc. That's important to have a working knowledge of that, so you can apply that to where your client is in that situation. The captive is the same idea, right? It's alternative risk financing. It's the money, right? So how is that in a 30,000 foot or 15,000 foot level? How does that work, and how would that apply here, right? Because that's like one of the first questions I get from agents is like, well, what's good captive look like a good captive prospect? And so understanding what that looks like, knowing what good looks like and bad looks like, that's super important. Understanding the different types of captive would be good. Do they have to go and be an expert in that? No. I don't think they have to be an expert in captives in order to use this as a strategy. But boy, you better be ready to talk about it, because as you said earlier, right? Because I think your piece is it does dovetail with what we're doing, but I think your piece is way more important. Right? Go understand this particular industry first, and then see how this captive thing can apply to them, right? Because if you're a 5 boroughs New York contractor, right now I can't do anything with that, right? But that doesn't mean you couldn't work that industry and do something, with contractors in a particular state. So I guess my point is, you don't have to be an expert in captives in order to sell it, right? No, you have, every agent, you have to understand it to a certain degree, and that's what we're here for. We're here to coach you up, to show you how to use this as a strategy. Is it a fit for everybody? Absolutely not. When it works really well. But when it doesn't, boy, that business owner is going to spend some money that they didn't. They should ultimately know how much they would spend in any event. But for the wrong fit, it's a bad idea.
I think the other thing that scares agents, and you will probably agree with me, I talk to hundreds of producers, agency owners. I talk to, obviously, we also specialize in working with MGAs and MGUs, because they're also very specialized, and they obviously sell they sell and create and build specialized products for specific industries that solve specific problems. So it's a really good fit for us. So where I was going to go with this next is, I believe that agents have to have this as a tool in their toolbox and be prepared. Just like you're advocating to your clients that they have to be prepared when bad stuff happens. Guess what? Right. It's the same situation. You need to be prepared that when bad stuff happens, like your competition's breathing down your neck, and they have potentially better solutions, or maybe they're a specialist in an industry. You know what's going to happen? This is what I've seen it happen. Is if you don't become a specialist and you've got a really nice sized book of business and you've got some big accounts in there, the chances, I feel the same way that you do about captives. I believe that agents are going to lose business out the back door to the specialists. So if you're a generalist agent right now and you have a pretty nice mix or a mix of book of business, usually you have a certain percentage of mix of more of one thing than the other, typically. But I believe that if you don't really hunker down and specialize, you are going to lose your accounts to someone who does.
Couldn't agree more.
That's just the reality.
Yep. So I couldn't agree more. And look, it's and I don't want to sound like we're spreading this huge fear tactic, but it's just kind of an awakening. Like, I'm living proof of losing a really nice account that changed our agency the next day when we didn't have it. And I hate to see, like I said, I hate losing more than I like winning, and that sucked, right? I want agents to get your head out of the sand, pay attention here, spend a little bit of time, understand how this works, and at least be able to have a conversation. Because if you don't bring this to them and another person does, you're backpedaling. And the last thing you want to do in a sales position is backpedaling, right? Going, oh, well, we
can do that. We can do that.
Case in point. Yeah, we can do that. Case in point. So,
yep.
Because I get calls from business owners all the time. Now, we don't ever take accounts internally ever. Zero. They have to have an independent agent, and that independent agent is not us, right? So we give them somebody in our network. If the business owner is not working with an independent agent, we'll introduce them to somebody. And I give leads to our members all the time. But here's what's crazy about this. I had a call from a business owner, GC, pretty 80 million revenue, something like that.
Good size.
Good size. And he said, "Hey, tell me about this captive thing." Sure. I go give him an idea of how it works and this and that. And I said, "Well, who's your agent?" He goes, "Oh, well, that's the reason I'm calling you." He said, I asked my agent, like, what about this captive thing? And he's instantly, he said his agent told him, "Oh, you guys aren't big enough." And he said it in a way that the business owner is like, I'm gonna go check this out.
That's kind of offensive.
And so he called me, right? So he calls me, calls us. And I'm like, "Well, how much you spending?" He goes, $1.5 million, comp GL and auto. I'm like, okay. I said, "Well, look, I'm happy to introduce you to one of our people, or you can put us in touch with your agent." And so what his agent was not independent. So one of our members got that lead. What blew me away is that happens all the time, right? A good friend of mine is chairman of the board of a publicly traded company, and before he sold into and this conglomerate was created, he was $400 million revenue business, and he said, "My agent said I wasn't big enough," and he trusted him, so he went with it. But he said, "I kick myself now knowing what I know today, that here they are. They could have easily saved $500,000 or more a year. They were in a great manufacturing operation, But thank God that relationship, if that relationship was any less strong, he would have lost. Right? That agent would have lost that account in a minute." So
100%. Well, that's interesting because you and I both learned from Scott Addis that, one of the things you can do is if you have those creative solutions for your clients or even prospects, and you can show them a way that they can leverage that, they save $500,000. What Scott Addis taught me is, how can you then redeploy that extra savings that you're lowering that total cost of risk to an insured. Then having an intelligent conversation with an insured and saying, "This is what we're going to do to help you. And how are you going to then redeploy that extra?" Because I had that happen to me. I was working with a large manufacturing account, and the long story short is, their agent was not a specialist. They didn't even have a safety credit. In PA, you can have the 5% safety credit if you have a safety committee set and put in place. And me as a risk management nerd, I'm like, that's the first place I went. I'm like, "Hey, I just looked at your policy. You guys don't even have the credit. You guys are spending $750,000 on your work comp alone." I said, right out of the gates, I said, "We have the package to be able to show you exactly how to do this." We educated the client or the prospect on this. And guess what? A week later, we got the BOR. And the reason why is not because I saved them, I don't know, what was it, $35,000? It's because I came to them with something new and different, which I took the time to educate them on something they didn't even know. They don't even know what they don't know.
Yeah.
The client, the CFO, didn't even know that credit existed. And he's like, "Oh, this is so super easy. We have a safety guy who runs the plant here, and we have an operation in China, and we have an operation in Mexico." He's like, it's a no-brainer. So even like a really smart agent who understands all the different nuances and can give a client options to help them save money or to help them redeploy capital or redeploy assets, that's a conversation that most agents are not having with insureds. And it's our fault because, first off, we do a terrible job at training producers.
Oh,
I think
miserable.
If we do a better job at, and that's one of the things that my Niche Mastery Academy is trying to do, is we want a producer to come in and have them master a specialty, a niche, but walk them through the paces, help them with sales tools, how to create content, how to market themselves, how to create a lead magnet, like how to do a video, right? There's a framework for doing a video, which you can do a personalized video to a prospect, or, there's all kinds of really unique things that you can do to differentiate yourself from everybody else in the marketplace and to truly master risk management. Risk management is, I think, one of the big pieces that's a problem. Most agents are taught to smile and dial, but they're really not taught the industry. They're not taught how to add value to an insured and find problems to solve. The easiest place that I've ever, and this is what I learned from Scott. Again, I know we're always going back to Scott, but this was the most invaluable thing I ever learned from him, is that the easiest place for an agent to go is to talk to the insured specifically about risk management and find areas of opportunity where you can solve real problems and position yourself as a trusted advisor, or as he called them, risk architects.
Yeah, exactly. And really, if you think about it, when and I don't know who I learned this from. You're an advisor when they call you before they make that decision, right? So if you're gonna go buy a business or whatever, you're gonna call an attorney and ask them, hey, what do you think about this, or a banker or whatever, right? That's an advisor. If you get the call, hey, we just bought 10 semi trucks, we're going to start our own operation. After the fact, you're not an advisor, right? No. You're just somebody pushing policies. So that I don't know who told me that. That was I thought that was like, man, that blew my mind. That was so good.
Can we shift the gears here on something? Yeah. I'm really curious. Let's talk now that we've talked about niching down and risk management, all that good stuff. It was so important to learn and master that stuff. Let's talk about niche strategy. I don't know how you would answer this question, but this is one of the questions I had in my mind. What are the top 3 industries or verticals where captives are not just a good fit, but they're actually a no-brainer? Like, give us real examples.
Yeah. So what I see a lot of is, I call it businesses with stuff, right? If I had 100 lawyers in an office, is that a fit for a captive? I mean, could we put the professional in a captive? I'm sure we could. Are you going to go looking for that? Probably not. Risk and architects and engineers. You're an engineer. They pay a lot for professional liability. But really, it's like, if you think about it, if you have a business that's, they got 50 trucks and they got stuff going every different direction, and they got people and, construction, manufacturing, distribution. Those are the kind of the 3 big ones, I think, where there's a really good fit for this strategy for the right business. Not everybody's a win there, because I've seen some pretty horrible stuff where I'm like, this is like, this business is going to go out of business, right? They keep going in this direction. And so that's where, and there's a lot of it, in my opinion, right? I think there's a ton of that stuff in the, just in the US, right? Look at NAICS, and I call it NAICS codes, NAICS codes, right? And go through that and go look at those and see. You can just download the data yourself. It's free. And go see the number of businesses between 10 million and like 500 million or $750 million in revenue. It is enormous. It blows my mind, like how big that is. So, there's an opportunity right there. If you say commercial construction, there's some really good businesses that really would love to take advantage of this strategy.
Well, I look at any of the trades. I mean, I just talked to a guy who wants to build out an agent who wants to build out an HVAC program and specialize in HVAC, but he's very clear on his target market, which is good. That's a really good step. And he said, hey, I'm not interested in the one truck, one owner with a couple guys type of business. He's like, I want the guys who maybe have multiple locations. They have 10, 15, 20 trucks on the road, have assets, maybe own their property, maybe they don't. So he was very clear with me on what he's going after. And I think that's a really important thing, is if you are going to go down this road, you have to be very clear on what you want to go after, and not, there has to be clarity on exactly what is going to be your focus. Would you agree with that?
Could not agree more. Could not agree more. Because this is where I think agents in the beginning, what is the failure rate of producers to validate? It's like 75%, right? It's a crazy number. Right?
I've heard 75 or heard 80. I've heard, it's probably between 60 and 80%, somewhere in that range.
Yeah. I mean, that's
just shocking to me.
Yeah. Well, it's not, I mean, it's shocking that we allow it to continue. It's not, that we're not doing more to fix it. Again, if the alignment of the agency owner, I think there's some issue there, because they want you to go write a bunch of ops, and, you and I are advocating, like, why would you waste your time with that stuff? Like, learning how to write that is not going to benefit you to write some big, account that would be eligible to go into a captive. You might as well just skip the small stuff and go right into it and say, hey, we only work with HVAC contractors who have 10 trucks and blah, 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 blah. Yep. That means a lot to a prospect, right? They're going to love that. But what it does too, it keeps you focused on what like what we want versus what we don't, because there's so much noise. But actually, I just had a thought. I think part of the problem is if you are a salesperson and you come into the world, and there's two ways to think about it: scarcity or abundance. So if you come from a position of scarcity, that's the guy who has to write everything, because, oh my gosh, where am I going to eat? If I don't hunt and kill today, I'm not going to eat.
I got to validate. I have this pressure and stress that I got to validate.
Yeah. Versus the guy who's in abundance and understands that there's so much business out there that if I just stick to my guns and know what I'm good and what I'm after, and I'm going to only do that there's so much business out there that it will come to me, right? If I follow these steps, and, like, you've got your framework. If you follow these steps, I'll get there. And I couldn't agree with that more. And Scott Addis would tell you the same thing, right? It's like, why would his clients were like Urban Outfitters and Petco and stuff like that. I mean, some huge names. And he wasn't like this massive broker. I mean, they had a decent brokerage, but they weren't like, the 3-letter words and whatever you want to see on TV and stuff, right? I mean, but they had and it's because of what you're saying.
They're world class. When you do things world class, and I use that word world class because I truly believe that if you're going to play with the big boys and you're going to compete at that level, you have to bring you have to bring your A game. Like, you have to be really freaking good at what you do. And the only way, in my opinion, to do that is to master. It's mastery. It's funny. Well, I read Robert Greene's book. Robert Greene is, I don't know if you know that he's like the mentor to the Stoic guys and Ryan Holiday and Holiday and some of these guys. He wrote a book called Mastery, and it's a big book, long book, really intense, but it goes to exactly what we're talking about. Is I would rather position myself to master something than to try to be that everything to everybody, because that's what even my mentor told me. That he said 2 things. He said, Rob, and this is a guy who had a massive transportation book, like huge. He wrote all the yellow school buses in Pennsylvania. He wrote massive trucking accounts. Like his focus was transportation. Like that was his book, massive. So he said, there's 2 things. He said, he gave me the same advice that you did. He's like, Rob, it takes you the same amount of effort to write that little flower shop on the corner. That nice sized HVAC contractor that is a really nice account for you. And if you just stacked some of those on, you'd come, a year, 2, 3 years from now, you'll have a really nice book of business, like something you're really proud of. And he said that small little flower shop is going to be more of a headache to you than that big HVAC guy. And I didn't really understand it or believe it until it actually happened. But then he said the other thing too is, so don't waste your time on that small stuff. Go after something that you know you can be really, really good at and specialize in that one thing. And he said, trust me when I tell you, you're going to get tempted. He said, you're going to get tempted that your banker, your CPA friend, you're building you're building your prospect advisory board. You're building your trusted advisors around you who are going to also refer you business. Don't be tempted by that. I always call it that big account that gets put in and you're saying to yourself, I have no right to be writing this account because this is like way out of my league. I don't even understand that specific class of business. You know what? You're better off referring that to somebody else and taking a piece of the action. That's my position now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's funny. You want to talk about big brokers and whatever. You're going to compete against the big guys. Look, I love their dog and pony show. They come in with 5-6 people and pretend like they're going to have all this stuff, and they don't ever do that. Right? That's what actually Scott broke that paradigm shift for me when he said, "Do you think they honestly do that?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, I thought so." He goes, "No, they don't." He goes, "You're going to get, the accounts that get that level of service from some of these folks. That's the Fortune 500, and they have their own stuff anyway, right? They've got their own risk manager. They've got all the stuff." So it really kind of blew my mind. That's why I want to tell agents, like, don't be afraid of big accounts because you think you can't, this is where the education comes in, right? It's like, go get smarter about some of this, spend the time, and you'd be surprised at how much more you can bring to the table versus what you think is the Goliath broker that's gonna
the suit and tie whole dog and pony show and the district managers coming in for the meeting. Like all that nonsense. So actually, I didn't think about this ahead of time, but I would actually argue that the big brokers are more vulnerable to the things that I teach than anybody else, because you're going to have that indie who's going to be like, I want to specialize in HVAC and I'm going to go after some big stuff because guess what? I'm going to master this industry and I'm going to bring tons of solutions. I'm going to have a captive solution. I'm going to have guaranteed costs. I'm going to have all these. I'm going to have world-class specialty wholesalers who have programs specific for that industry.
Yep.
And I'm going to bring everything in my arsenal to this industry. Those guys who are doing that, in my opinion, the big guys who are claiming to provide all this service to those, $1 million account to some of those big brokers is nothing. I mean, to them, that's like throwing them in a service center. Yeah. Oh, you're $1 million account. You're in our select business group. So we're going to throw you over here. I believe, especially with the M&A activity that's going on right now.
Yes. I was just going to say that.
Absorbing all these smaller regional agencies. Guess what's going to happen? They are going to be more vulnerable to losing these specialty accounts, these silos of specialty types of books of business. They're going to lose them to the small, nimble, like entrepreneurial indie who's going to be like, I'm going after this big stuff now because they have shifted. I love what you said. They're going to have a paradigm shift in their brains and they're going to go, I'm not afraid anymore to go after the Goliath. I'm not intimidated by the 5 suits that walk in a room, a bunch of gray-haired guys, who've been in the industry for 30 years. I'm not going to be intimidated by that because I know that they're not getting the service that they deserve and they're not going to be getting the quality that they deserve and the attention. That's who I think is vulnerable.
Do you want to be number 197 out of 200 or do you want to be number 1 out of 5?
100%.
Right. So as a business owner, well, look, I would rather be a bigger fish in a smaller pond because I'm going to get what I'm, like you're going to really work for me versus, as you said, well, you're just another, 50 grand in revenue to me of the 1,000 that I've got sitting around, whatever. Just don't even worry about it.
But don't you realize we have this incredible brand new risk management platform that we just launched? We spent $3 million on building this amazing risk management platform, and we're going to offer it to you. That's one of the guys. I'm not going to mention any names, but one of the producers who was in my program, he said, "Oh yeah, my big VP, whatever, was like, you guys have to push this new risk management platform to all of your prospects because it is the greatest thing since sliced bread." And he shared it with me, and I was like, dude, this is nothing exciting. That if you just, maybe you hire a risk management guy or gal, bring them on your team, and you're like, hey, I'm going to specialize in this industry. And guess what? I have a risk management person on my team. I've got an incredible CSR. I've got a great account executive. I've got like the SEAL Team 6, and they all specialize in HVAC contractors. All of the members of my team, they are all specialists just like me. Can you imagine the power that you would have over all these digital fancy platforms and all that stuff if you just had some human people don't want, especially if you're talking about risk. Do you really think that I want to navigate a digital platform to figure out, like, put this stuff through the scorecard and figure out where I need to manage my risk better and give me no, bring out a real human being who can go around my facility or go around my plant or go on a job site with one of my guys, show me what I need to do as a business owner to better manage risk and to solve this so I can become a better business. There you go.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I could not agree more.
All right. So I know we spent a lot of time here. Warren, I appreciate it. I feel like you and I feel like you and I could start our own show, our own captain show, and we could really make an impact. And I mean, I know that's down the road for you and I, because I think we're going to have a great partnership. Final word. If agents don't get educated right now on captives, what's coming for them in the next hard market?
Well, I mean, I think that's already here. You know, here's what I kind of shake my head at. You know, I had an agent tell me, I've actually more than one. Yeah, well, we'll look at captives on the next renewal. I'm like, that's the absolute worst time. Absolute worst time. So, if you got a business owner who's been buying insurance the same way for the last 15 years, and you put this in front of them, they're looking at, they think it's all the same, right? So they got, you know, well, it's going to cost me, you know, $200,000 more to get into this captive thing versus, you know, staying at guaranteed cost or whatever you're doing. They're looking at it like, well, why am I doing that? And so if you're not ahead and educating them, right? So educate yourself first on what this is and why it is, because to get in a captive, they're going to spend a lot more money because they've got to post collateral and, you know, loss control, all kinds of different stuff. But the idea is that you can't expect them to have a different decision when you're trying to lay it all out at the same time as a defensive mechanism, right? When you say, hey, at this renewal, what I want to talk to you, once everything calms down, like 60 days later, let's go 90 days later, let's go talk about this strategy because I think you could benefit from it, you know, or you're doing it if you're doing a claims meeting, a quarterly claims audit, and you bring it up there, like that's the right time. I think if you're just doing this as a defense because you want contingency money or something like that, like you're going to lose, right? And that's the thing. I don't want to see you lose. I want to see you win. So I think that's probably the biggest. It blows my mind that we'll just wait for a renewal. Like that is, you're gonna get hammered.
That's not a strategy. That's not. I mean,
because somebody's going to show up midterm and give it to them, and they're going to spend 3 months, and you're not going to know it until they call you and say, "Hey, sorry,
yeah,
we're going in a different direction."
And it's a final thing I learned from Scott is the best time to talk to a prospect is right after the renewal.
Oh yeah, exactly. He taught me that exactly.
It's the best time.
Again,
you know, the prospect might say to you like, no, where it's not talk. We just had our renewal, and and I'd be like, well, this is the best. By the way, let me ask you a question. How did your renewal go this year? And two things are going to happen. Either they're going to be elated, which is what, maybe 0.00%,
Very few.
1%, or they're going to say, or they're going to be pissed off because their agent came to them at the last minute, like they always do, right? They got an increase, and maybe it's a massive increase, or something got fouled up in the renewal process. There's a really good chance that one of those three or something else happened that they're not going to be 100% pleased with. That is the best time to come to a prospect, is when they're pissed off. So, I always say to people, like, do not do the X date nonsense. I see guys posting about that all the time. Oh, I got a bunch of X dates. Well, what the hell does that mean? It means nothing. Well, I didn't give a hoot about someone's X dates.
So Scott would tell you, you are one of 100 that calls them 90 days prior to the renewal.
Exactly.
With no intention of changing their risk profile, right? And that's what, if agents can learn that this risk management piece is so important, because that's what's actually going to affect the outcome. That's what we need for the captive, right? If you don't have all of that in place, like that's a tough road to get into captive if you're just kind of lucky, right? Yeah. Lucky isn't good.
I couldn't agree more. And Warren, I will say this. This is where the other piece of what I think we do really well is, and I think it's an area that needs more focus and attention, is the content piece. I don't think independent agents do a good enough job on the content side and leveraging content as a strategy to educate prospects and clients.
It's hard. It's hard to do it, right? There's a great book, They Ask You Answer, by Marcus Sheridan. Marcus is a genius in the fact that he's got a great story about his pool company and now he's grown this great content, but he teaches you how to do it, right? So we're huge fans. An independent agency owner, actually, I'm going to give Xander, taught me, he handed me the book actually back 3-4 years ago. And I took it and ran with it. But this is exactly what you're talking about. It takes time. It takes effort, right? And if you're looking for easy street and shortcuts, it's just not going to happen, right? But if you have 20 accounts with me in captives, potentially that's $1 million revenue book of business with 20 accounts.
Yep.
And you're super specialized.
I love that. By the way, one of the reasons I think why you and I connected in the first place is, I think maybe we've been in connection for a while, or I posted a piece of content about captives. I said, this is one of the most underutilized, misunderstood areas of insurance that I don't think enough independent agents really understand how to leverage it as a strategy. And I think, man, did that open up a can of worms? I got DMs. I got people reaching out to me. They're like, they wanted to learn more because I had a nice piece of content which shared education to the independent agents about why this could potentially be one of the tools in your toolbox that you really need to learn. Like, you can't just sit on the fence and wait for stuff to happen. Like, you have to be proactive. If you want to develop your career, you want to become really good at what you do, you have to learn this stuff and you have to develop new skill sets. Yeah. So I think this is a result of, which I'm so excited about, because this is going to be such an amazing partnership and relationship. I love what you guys do. I love your model. And I think what Captive Coalition is doing is really helping to transform the industry and making a positive impact where it needs it the most. And that is with education, knowledge, taking action, like not just sitting back and just absorbing more content or more information, but it's like, why don't you go take this and present this to 5 of your top clients and just see what they have to say and learn. You've got to practice your pitch. You've got to practice your value proposition. You got to learn, but the only way you learn is by doing. So go and present this or have a conversation with Warren before you do that.
Yeah, don't practice on your clients. That's my Sandler sales coach who tell me, Tim Goering. He's great, right? He does stuff for us too, in our as part of our free training that we give our members. I think going back to I reached out to you because I love the idea of the niche, right? And there's not too many guys out there teaching that, how to get really specific. And that's one thing. And then, look, I'm not blowing sunshine here, but like I've got agents, guys who were with a large broker, got acquired, didn't want to be part of that anymore, went off, started their own agency. I think there's a ton of those guys out there. And they're like, where should we go to go learn this? And I referred two of them to you. Just because they need direction that you can give them, right? Because we're very specialized in what we do is what we do, right? There are other folks who are much better at teaching you, okay, here's how you go after the HVAC niche and a whole process and strategy to do that, right? We're just a very small part of that at the end.
Well,
So
Warren, I'm extremely honored and blessed to have you on. And I'm going to use the analogy because of, you're going to like this. We're about to land the plane. And so I actually have a surprise question for you, which I didn't prep you in advance. So it's going to be a surprise, potentially. So, Warren, I want you to think back, or I want you to imagine right now that you're retired and you're kind of looking back on your career and the impact that you've made on people's lives and the businesses that you've been blessed to be part of. As you think back and look back in your career, how do you want to be remembered? What legacy do you want to leave behind?
If I can have, excuse me, if I can have people talk about me in the same way we talk about Scott Addis, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's a win.
Yeah,
that's a big win.
Yeah,
man. Imagine the fact that we're having this conversation and that, like, I mean, I hate to say it sometimes. Like, I think about that, and there's a part of me that, like, it touches my heart because I'm getting emotion. I get emotional about it because
I do.
I would not be where I am right now and talking the way that I talk with you if it wasn't for that first. I'm telling you, it was the second week of my employment at that agency where my mentor said to me, I'm sending you to this seminar. You're not going to know anything about it. You're probably not going to, but he said, I'm telling you right now, it's going to be transformational. It's going to change your life. And I said, I didn't believe him at first because it sounded really hypey to me. And I walked away from that week and I was like, oh my gosh, like, I get it. This guy's amazing. Like, this guy transformed my thinking about selling insurance and what it takes to be successful. So imagine the lives that he's impacted. And I think that's what I'm hearing you say is impacting people's lives in a positive way is really, I think it's the greatest legacy you can leave behind.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's, if I could get just a little closer to what he's done, it would be something. He's such a special guy.
Yeah, it's something to chase after, something to strive for. Warren, if people wanted to learn more about you and reach out to Captive Coalition and learn more about all the things that you guys offer, what's the best way for people to reach you?
So a couple of ways, right? Go to captivecoalition.com. You'll see all kinds of great stuff. Free resources for agents right now. If you think you're the kind of agent that wants to learn more about captives and really get into it a little bit, you can click the apply. We do ask all of our prospective members to fill out a short little application. We also offer a strategy session I'll do every other week. And you can sign up for that if you want to get a taste of what it is to hear Captive Coalition and the things we represent, and really educate yourself. That'd be the three easiest ways to kind of get into our organization.
Awesome, man. What a plane ride it's been, right? Like, what an incredible journey. This is probably one of my most favorite episodes that I've ever recorded, and you're a first class guy, and I have so much respect for you. The stories that you've shared today were really heartfelt, and obviously our conversation about Scott and the impact that he's made on both our lives is just incredible. So it's amazing how things come full circle. And that just goes to show you that you keep doing what you're doing, because you can't give up. You can't quit. You've got to keep sharing your message, because the more you share it, the more you offer value to people, the more it's going to kind of click in their minds. And man, what if just one thing that you shared saves that guy's account who's at risk of losing their largest account because they're a small independent agent and he's at risk, but he listened to maybe our podcast episode here, or he saw some of your content on your website. Man, imagine that. Like, you might have saved his, who knows? You might have saved his business. We don't know.
I mean, that would be great, right? And don't end up like me. losing $300,000 in revenue. That was a really bad day.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Warren, thank you so much. And
thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Stay tuned for more of these kinds of episodes. I don't know how I'm going to be able to top this one ever in the future, but guys, I really appreciate you being part of the Riches in the Niches show. And we're, this is our mission. This is our purpose. This is what we've been called to do, is to bring guys like Warren on. And we're extremely grateful and honored to do that and bring his value to all of you. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, buddy.